So welcome to the JB Media Digital Drop-In webinar. As most of you know, this is the JB Media Institute. My name is Sarah Benoit and I'm the lead instructor. I'm really excited to have everybody here today as we talk about social media strategies for creatives and artists and musicians. Over the years, we've had a number of artists in our program, musicians, painters, jewelers, writers, authors. And I wanted to really spend a little bit of time talking today specifically about the way that artists and creatives can use social media to their advantage. And I did put together a short presentation for towards the end of the call. We're going to go over some basic tips and best practices. But the real treat that I have for everybody today is that I have two amazing artists in the room with me, and we're going to be doing a sort of Q&A discussion about a number of different things. So I'm really excited to have Andrew Scotchy in the house.
Hello everybody. How's it going? Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah,
I'm really
no
excited to hear more about what you've been doing with your music and your other projects. And then I'm also really excited to have Barbie Angel here today.
Oh, yay. Then I'm the second person. Okay.
Yes.
Yay.
And this is going to be conversational. You guys know I prepared some questions that we're going to talk about. But like I said, I am just really excited to have both of you here. I've been in Nashville for a long time, so I've been aware of a lot of the different things that y'all are doing for a while. So it's important, I think, for all of the students to not just hear from me as somebody who's working with clients, but to also actually hear artists who are doing their craft and using different digital tools to actually make things happen. And for all of us to kind of share ideas about how that happens, because I know sometimes it's just a big, giant rabbit hole of things when it comes to social media, especially. There's so many options and so much going on. So I just am so grateful to have you guys here to share your kind of stories and experiences. Before we kick off on questions, one of the things I wanted to share with everybody is something that if you've taken my classes in the past, you know I talk about. And essentially it's that what you see on the screen, this group of people around the fire, this is what I call the original social media. So human beings have been coming together to share and tell their stories for thousands of years. And if you actually read a lot about neuroscience and storytelling and things like that, you come to really discover that storytelling in a lot of ways is knit into human DNA. It's really something that we're compelled to do as just people. And so I work with a lot of artists, I train a lot of artists, and one of the things I try to remind them of is that a lot of social media work really isn't about being that technical. It's really about being expressive, it's about being communicative, it's about being passionate. And you do have to maybe learn some tools that are digital, which maybe feels technical, but those tools were really created for regular people. They weren't created for IT people, they weren't created for programmers. They were created for regular folks like all of us who want to get out there and share what we're doing. And so I really believe that artists have a huge opportunity to look at all the digital tools out there, especially in the social media world, and just choose the things that feel right to them, that feel like get them excited, maybe that feel more intuitive. So I often tell artists, if you really don't like Facebook, walk away from Facebook, do something else. Yeah. You're not limited to that. There's all these other things you could be doing to share your passion and your story and your excitement about the kind of creative work that you do. So I just wanted to set that tone today that, everyone on this call who's doing creative work, and doing any type of DIY marketing, you really do have an opportunity to succeed. And I'm also self-taught entirely, even though this has been my career. And I started out as a writer. So when I first started out doing writing for websites and different things and studying SEO, lots of people said, writers don't do this. You're not supposed to be involved in this type of work. This is for technical people. But I had some programmer friends who were like, that's not true. You should stick around. We need more creative people. We need more people with voices, and we need more people who can put like the heart and soul into the stuff that the programmers are building.
Yeah.
right? So we have to have that incorporated. So I just want to encourage all of you to think about that and to give yourself the freedom to learn different things and know that you really have the ability to use these tools the same as anyone else. And so again, that's why I wanted to start today by talking and asking some questions to people who are actually doing it. And I want to encourage all of you, I'll be watching the chat while we have this conversation. So please, please, please chat in your own questions. I'm glad to stop while we're talking. You can ask Andrew and Barbie anything about their experience as we go along. So I want to start out talking to Andrew about just kind of what you've been working on, first of all. So as you guys can see, I've put on the screen some information about Andrew. And can you just take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about the River Rats and what you're doing? I know you have a new album that's sort of like available for pre-sale now, but it'll be coming out in May. And just tell us a little bit about your projects.
Yeah, so the River Rats and I have been a band since 2011. It started as a busking duo on the streets of Asheville, and it quickly became an electric project. We didn't start touring or releasing music until 2012, 2013. 2015, we started to travel more and more, released a live album in 2016, and this past fall, winter, we went into the studio to work on Family Dynamo, which is our third studio album. Is coming out in May, and we're really excited about it because this is the most eclectic recordings that we've ever gotten to do. It incorporates most instruments, vocals, and just collaborative kind of writing. And right now we're just really working hard on tour dates around that. We are working with the publicist here in town to try to take some of the weight off, because for a long time I was doing all of it. I was doing the booking, I was doing the promotions, and building the press releases, doing a lot of the posters and all that, communicating with the venues, trying to engage the fans, and it just became a lot. So right now, the name of the game for me is engaging the fans and also delegating as much as possible, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to, write with my band and focus on the best shows possible to support this album. And yeah.
Awesome. That's excellent. First of all, I'm a big fan of kind of the buskers success stories.
Yeah.
That's something in Asheville that I've heard of a number of. People who really kind of started out just, getting attention on the street, and then it just sort of built and built. And it's really exciting when you start to get to a point where you can delegate. That's for anybody who's actually in business, whether it's creative or not. When you get to that point where you start to be able to okay, I need to hand some of this stuff off so I can focus on what I'm really good at. That's really awesome. And Barbie, I just want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do. You do a number of different things. You're a poet, a writer. You have more than one book, or one book out?
There's only one book in print right now. Yeah.
But I also know you're an MC. You do a lot of events. You actually work alongside a lot of other artists and creative events in town. So just tell everybody a little bit about that.
So I'm all that, and I act, and I'm getting back into singing, and I write and draw and paint and all the good stuff, create my own little clothes and stuff. And somehow, really, I think a lot of what happened with my career in Asheville is when I came here in '99, I got pretty well known as a writer, just from going out and doing open mics and doing shows and all of that, and got pretty well known as a poet. And then I stopped performing for about 5 years, and when I came back to it, there was social media, and a friend of mine just taught me the basics on everything, and that's really how I got back into the Asheville scene, is by being funny on social media, just my own jokes and all of that, just observational humor or whatever, which led to then people wanting to meet me in real life, which I don't recommend that.
I do.
But then they wanted to meet me in real life and see if I was really that funny, and I'm not. And then they would think I was really funny in real life because these people have no taste. And then they would ask me if I would host their shows because they think I was funny on stage, and so on and so forth. And so I kind of became a social media personality early on, which then opened up the doors to me doing the things that I do now, which is fun. I wish that I had just sometimes I wish that I had just one thing that I did, you know. I'm the Best of Western North Carolina poet right now. The voting just ended, so until they announce the new winner. But I do poetry at festivals and concerts and places where you don't normally see poets, and I kind of wish if I were just focused on, say, poetry, then I would have another book out right now, and I would, but as it is, I spend a lot of time doing a variety of things, which are all fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of artists can relate to that, and actually that's something I'm going to talk about towards the end of the call is, a lot of artists have their hands in multiple mediums and projects, and you start meeting people and collaborating, and things snowball into something maybe you didn't expect. I also think it's really interesting that you have, and I don't know if you'll probably laugh when I say this, but I really consider you in the Asheville area in that sort of influencer category. Because you've been involved with so many events, for instance, I saw you documenting Asheville Music Video, which was a big event that just happened.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I think is also pretty unique. When you're an artist, you're involved in all these different things. A lot of people start paying attention, and then all of a sudden you realize, people start coming to you to say like, oh, will you promote to your network all these other things that we're doing? And so you've actually got that on top of, I think, a lot of the
what I've always
stuff.
Considered like a social media personality. At some point it turned into me being this. Somebody recently said I was a tastemaker, which is like an influencer, I guess. And I think that's because when I get excited about something, like Andrew Scotchy and the River Rats, I just can't help but talk about it. And on social media, especially, so that I can let people know something that I'm excited about. And the thing with that is I also got really well known for only doing it in a positive way. Like, I don't go around saying if Andrew, had a bad show, which of course would never happen, but if Andrew had a bad show, I wouldn't be sitting there saying, oh gosh, well, normally the River Rats are awesome, but tonight the sound was terrible and their bass player had a cold or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't say the negative things, because if they had a bad show or if I just didn't like the music of the band that was playing, it's not, I don't know, it's not a good thing to be out there like promoting this negative stuff just because I didn't like it or whatever.
There's so much of that already going on in the
Exactly.
world. I just want to chime in and say that I absolutely agree with you on that. I think it's very important as you're telling a story, if you're an artist, festival promoter, whatever, as you're telling your story and you're keeping people up to date, especially in real time, it's very important to express the excitement and the happiness, because if you're happy and you're sharing your story and you're excited, then people are gonna, want to be right there with you, along the journey, and they're gonna get excited too. And there's just too many people, ranting all the time on Facebook. I'm finding more and more that people are just, scrolling past most of that. Some people want to get involved in the political debates, and that's fine. That's their choice, but there is a lot of noise on Facebook, and I think that's why some people are shifting to Instagram.
Yeah.
As far as like documenting, like, hey, this is happening now, this is happening at this date. It's just a really, I guess, simplified way of communication, less noise overall. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of always, what was his name from Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Spicoli? Yeah. I've always kind of looked at social media as like being Spicoli, where he says, wherever you are is the best place to be, basically. Look around you. Isn't this great? And I feel like that attitude was important for my my persona, my character that I created, which I will absolutely talk about later, because I think that's probably the most important thing you can do for social media. But my character is she's just thrilled to be wherever she is. She's just enjoying every moment. And when my fans online, when they see my life through social media, they're like, oh my gosh, you have the best life. You get to do all the coolest things and hang out with the coolest people. And they're saying that not because they usually know who these people are, but because I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm hanging out with Sarah Benoit and Andrew Scacchi, and this is so awesome. And they believe me because they know that I'm not out there. If it weren't awesome, I wouldn't mention it. You know, and also the fact that my opinion cannot be bought. I don't do any of it for money. Like that would be great if I did, because then I'd be making money. But I can't get on there and be telling people that this stuff is awesome if I don't truly believe it, because it's my name, because I'm my own brand, and it's my name that's behind it. So
yeah, I was going to say, I often tell students that social media is a tool. And so like any other tool, if I have a hammer, I can pick it up and bash all these holes in the wall and make this room a mess. Or I could hang up a bunch of beautiful art and contribute to it. So I always try to remind people, I'm like, social media is just a tool. So there's lots of people who pick it up and do really unproductive, mean, terrible things, and we can't really control that. And so instead of, I think, sometimes getting caught up in that, the best thing to do is know that you have access to the same tool and you can pick it up and do something really powerful.
That's why people love art and music and, you know, events, is because it's an escape. You know, we have to remember that whenever we're sharing events or inviting people to do something with us, we're offering them an outlet, you know.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, how poetry and writing resonates with Barbie, you know, like being on stage and connecting with people and just beating the hell out of the guitar resonates with me. And, you know, it's a release, you know, and now more than ever in the world, people need a release. People need, people need that. So that's something really important to keep in mind. You know, you're trying to engage them, you're trying to invite them, you're not trying to talk at them. I think that's one thing that some bands do. I mean, naturally, from a musician's perspective, I've noticed some bands that are, you know, super famous, and all they have to do is just post a ticket link, and then boom, the tickets start selling. But if you're working the region, if you're working the East Coast, whatever, as a musician, you have to engage your fans. You have to tell them why, you know, like a certain show or a certain event is special and why you want them to join you.
Yeah.
Not just be there, but to join you. You know, to be part of what you're doing.
Yeah. So jumping into some questions, I did pull up some of your social media sites as well as your websites, just so we could share them with everybody. And so what I want to talk about first is which platforms you're using, and if you could just briefly kind of share why you're choosing to spend some time on those platforms. And you want to start talking? I know I pulled up the Facebook page that you have for the River Rats as well as Instagram.
Yeah. So I personally am getting the most results through Facebook for the band and for the festival, Asheville Barnaroo, that I've founded back in 2009. I think it's because these two pages, Andrew Scacchi and the River Rats and Asheville Barnaroo, I think these two pages have been telling a story the longest, as opposed to Instagram's only, like our Instagram page has only been active for about maybe 2.5 years. These pages have been around since 2010, 2011, so we've got a wide variety of people that have, you know, just joined on since the last show, or people that have been there since we were playing in basements, you know. So the people that are liking and sharing most of the time, those are the people that have been along the whole entire journey with us and seen the band become a little bit more successful over the time. And I'm personally trying to build our Instagram page more, especially with festival season right around the corner. If there's any musicians, actually, I'm curious, how many of you are musicians or know musicians? If anyone would like to say that, would give me a great idea of.
Yeah, so anybody who's on the call, if you are a musician or you're working with musicians, we've got Madison.
Yeah, so
feel free to chat in.
I think one thing coming up with festival season, if we scroll down, you'll see a wide variety. Like there's Floyd Fest right in there. There is the Howling Festival. And if you notice, look at that image. It's overridden with text. So I tried to make it as concise as possible about my posts, and I think that's one thing that is showing good results in Instagram.
I like that response right there.
Which one?
The
jam.
This lineup is stacked. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's really important, especially if you have an image on Instagram that's just got a lot of text. Try to keep it kind of concise. One thing I wish Instagram did, I wish you could post ticket links to where people can hit it and they would go right to it. That would be nice, but at the same time, it's also kind of cool how the image is really highlighted. But yeah, I'm trying to push the Instagram a little bit more. It's also fun if you're traveling. Say you're on the road for 2 nights, or say you're on the road for 2 months. I think it's really important to keep people updated. I mean, like here's a goofy video of our bass player in the gym before we hit the road for tour. Like, it's a silly video, but at the same time, it's not just the same.
Keith Harry, bass guitar extraordinaire, getting nice and swole for the upcoming shows. Getting pumped up.
So, this is my business partner. He is an amazing man and a great father, and so we try to balance. One note I made whenever Sarah sent me over questions, we try to balance fun stuff with really goofy stuff. Like you'll see some professional photographers. We're sharing pictures. You'll see some sound checks, some videos from the crowd, and I think it's really important to, like, as you're on the way to a show, as you're setting up, I think it's really fun to document these kind of things. And especially if you're working on an album. Again, we are releasing a record May 17th called Family Dynamo that we've been working on for 6 months plus. And the whole entire process, I know Barbie has seen it from the beginning. We were very adamant about be like, hey, we're in pre-production. Hey, we're heading to the studio. Hey, we're working with Matt Williams on these songs and these arrangements. And it was really informative, especially for the people that have been following us, because they want to see how that unfolds. You got to think from a musician's perspective. One thing that's really attractive to fans or potential fans is showing them what goes into a show, what goes into making an album, what goes into artwork for that album, because that's something that they do not encounter on a daily basis. So you're essentially giving them a behind the scenes look, and at the same time that's engaging. You're not just posting ticket links, you're not just posting images and being like, get your tickets here. Yeah, so I think it's really important to give people a behind the scenes look as much as you can.
That's awesome, because I really believe Instagram is great for that.
Yep.
In the world of social media, when we look at the purpose behind, let's say, Facebook versus Instagram really has such a stronger pull with higher levels of engagement and really pushing out like brand recognition, name recognition.
Logos are huge. Like I think that's one thing that we're pushing on the Instagram, especially with this new album, is you'll see right here and over there that our logo has changed completely. So Instagram has been really helpful in capturing that. And here's another example of the process, of the album. Little things like this, like videos of the CDs being made in the factory. Like try to work with whoever's on your team to get content, especially short videos, good short videos to show people like step by step. And then that way, whenever they do get tickets or whenever they do come to your show, they'd be like, they know the story and they're that much more, excited about getting their copy, or they're that much more excited about, spending their hard-earned money to come out and see you on a Saturday night or whatever.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, with Instagram playing that role of kind of that name recognition and the really getting people engaged in kind of the storytelling piece, I think when you're working with Facebook, a lot of times what you get is that click-through at a higher level on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Because it's just created for people to click over and buy the tickets. It's created for them to click over and look at your website or whatever you're putting out there. So
that's absolutely true, and I've noticed over the few years, like I actually like to go back through like the Facebook memories and like see how bad my social media was in like 2011, and I'm just like looking at, I'm just like, oh my gosh, nothing was tagged, there were spelling issues. I was like, man, I went to college and everything, how is this okay? And basically so many people are just scrolling, and I think images are really important on Facebook, but also, you know, questions and trying to find some ways to engage, not just posting something, you know, like, so right here, if you scroll up a little bit, Barbie mentioned the best of WNC. The van, I wish our van was voted the best of WNC. The band has been voted #1 rock and roll band for the past 3 years, and the polls just closed, and, you know, some people might think, what does it matter? It's kind of a resume builder, and for a musician, these kind of things actually help you get booked, and some promoters actually like to see this kind of stuff. So we were encouraging our fans to give us votes again for 2018. And one thing that we did, instead of just posting a picture or a link and be like, we would love your votes, we made this little video right here, this slide right here that features a clip of audio from the album that's coming up, and it's not even released yet. You know, so you're giving them something that isn't, you know, out to the public, out to like a mass audience yet. So trying to give people something exclusive, you know, or like an exclusive offer in exchange for something, you know, like almost like a trade system is, I think, very helpful. I think can work.
Awesome. And so, Barbie, just talking about the things that you're using, I find it interesting, first of all, that on Facebook, you've pretty much focused on your personal profile in a lot of ways as a way that you're connecting. And then, of course, I've been following you on Twitter for a long, long time. And I'm pretty sure that's actually how we met years ago when there were still tweet ups. Yeah. And I was brought to a tweet up by some other people. Yeah. But yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how you're using Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, I was the latest to come to Instagram. I've only been on Instagram for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, something like that. But I got onto Facebook and Twitter in 2009 when I first got onto social media, and I laid claim to Barbie Angel on everything, I started out telling a little bit, you know, like my personal life was a little bit out there and that, and I pretty quickly, being a girl on the internet, pulled that back because it attracts a lot of like pervs and you know, inappropriate stuff. So I pulled that back and just went with my persona on both pages, on both my fan page and on my personal page. And, you know, with that, it went well for a while, but then as it turns out, Facebook, you know, pushes down the fan page, the business pages, and you're not really getting as much out of it. So I switched that up and just had my Twitter go directly to my fan page, because no matter how much time I was putting into it, it wasn't getting the results of my personal page. Mm-hmm. So I just really focused on my personal page, which is public, and I just don't say anything about my actual personal, intimate life on there. And I like Facebook and Instagram because of the, you know, the same sort of thing. There's a demographic of people that's really Facebook oriented. You know, a lot of folks that are older are more comfortable with Facebook. People that don't feel like they're very tech savvy are more comfortable with Facebook, and I appreciate that, and that does, you know, dip into my fan base quite heavily. Instagram is a harder push to get more fans, more followers, but I've never been a size of the follower kind of girl on Twitter or on Facebook, because it's really not about the numbers. It's about engaging with people, and it's about building a community. Mm-hmm. So it is a little bit harder to expand your community on Instagram than it is on like Twitter or Facebook, but it's solid. The way that they do it, you know, you are more in control than you are on Twitter, and I don't know, Facebook has gotten a lot of the more angry people, and a lot of the people that, it used to be Twitter was where you'd find all the trolls, but Facebook really is troll heavy these days. Twitter is still my favorite because you are contacting directly. and able to just really engage with somebody directly. One of my my favorite stories is our friend Joseph and I, way before we met, had a very long conversation about the documentary Grey Gardens in 140 characters or less. You know, we just went back and forth talking about this, and Joseph became one of my best friends, and it's just somebody that I found on Twitter that happened to live here in Asheville. But the way that you can expand your community on Twitter is I think so much more beneficial than it is on Instagram or on Facebook. The people that are really on Twitter these days are hardcore Twitter people, and they're really devoted to it, and that's awesome. I've also talked to a lot of my heroes on Twitter, a lot of people that I would not normally get to talk to, which is really awesome. And like Andrew was saying about being able to connect more directly with your fan base or whatever, with your community. I think that's incredibly important, to be able to show people that you're just human. I mean, I always say that social media is the great equalizer, because even when, Steve Martin started on social media, he was making mistakes, we all kind of start in the same place on social media.
It's an incredible balance to find.
Yeah. It's not like somebody's so good at it. I mean, there are people who are so bad at it, but I'm not getting into politics on this. But it's also a pretty true representation, because no matter with your voice that you create, which I think is incredibly important to be able to say, okay, my character, for example, is witty and sweet and a little inappropriate, but there's a line she doesn't cross. She does swear. Everything is in lowercase, because then when I want to denote respect or raise my voice or whatever, it's more obvious. And mostly I talk in a deadpan. And there's things, I talk politics a little bit, but I'm not going to debate with someone. There's all these rules that I've given myself. And I think that's important in social media, to have that voice that reflects your brand, whatever it is. And I don't think that voice can be too far away from who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Because it comes through. You can't fake it that much, because it will come through.
Yeah. I just want to kind of piggyback off of that and say that for the musicians out there, I think it's very important to really focus on good, photos and good videos, that definitely illustrate some of the key moments or moments where you feel like you're riding pretty high, but also do not be afraid to be human and to express times when you feel worn out, or express times when you feel confused or frustrated. And people relate to that, because in the end, people are really good at picking out what's fake. It's like a really good example would be how soul music or rock and roll or blues music is just as prevalent as it was back in the 60s and 70s, and then how people, even if they're just casual listeners, they're able to say, or they are educated enough and they say that, hey, I know that a lot of stuff I hear on pop radio stations is kind of fabricated. Mm-hmm. It's not directly from the soul. There's a bunch of producers involved, and there's a lot of it starting to sound the same. So I think it's very important to have this real and raw element, but at the same time, maintaining somewhat of a professional, and having rules like Barbie was saying is very important. There's been so many times, especially when I was younger. I'm 25 now, and when I was 18 and really, I mean that. I know you're laughing.
We're not laughing at you. We're not laughing at you.
And so when I was 18,
you've accomplished
19,
a lot for 25. You should be really proud of yourself. It's amazing.
Thank you. When I was 18, 19, getting into the touring circuit and getting into moving Barnaroo to its current location, there were a lot of people or enough people to bother me that, you know, kind of undermined me because of my age, and assumed a lot of things because of my age. And there were numerous times where I wanted to vent, you know, on social media and even call out those people. But I did not do that because there's too many people like that, you know, doing that it just becomes noise, and it becomes, like we were saying in the beginning, negative energy. And it's better to rise above and focus on what you do have coming up, what you are currently working on, instead of negative aspects or anybody that's doubting you. And for musicians out there, you know, one thing that I was going to say that I think is the best thing that I could offer as advice for social media is consistency and, you know, branding, really staying up to date, not letting one show slip through the cracks, or let one show get, you know, a little bit more attention than others. Like I think it's really important to keep up to date on everything that's going on without flooding it. You know, like I've definitely seen a few artists that will post, and I'm absolutely guilty of it. You know, every now and then posting a little too much throughout the day. So I think it's important to focus on the key events and key projects you're working on, whether it be an album or whether it be a release, whether it be a specific show, a specific interview, artwork, whatever. And then one thing I noticed that some artists are doing that I don't know how you guys feel about it. I know that I've done it in the past. I haven't done it in years, but like this like mass tagging that some people do. I don't know if like that can work for some people. I personally, as far as like whenever a musician does that for like an event or whatever, whenever they tag like 98 people or something like that, I find that spammy. And I would say for musicians, and I'm just saying this from my point of view, and you can do as you wish, but I would try to avoid that, and I would only tag the people that are directly involved in your project, like your bandmates, your producer, your the guy that did the album artwork, maybe the promoter from the venue. I would try to just stick with the people that are directly involved, and that'll show up on their timeline, and it'll potentially, you know, get their friends to follow you or to like your page. I think that whenever it's more than like maybe 10 or 12 people, like it just becomes like, oh man, that's a lot, and the message just gets convoluted. I think.
As someone,
that's just me.
As someone who is a quote unquote influencer, I get those all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And with some people, like I know that I've told you that you feel free to tag me in anything because it does help. Yeah. But I give. But
we're involved in the same thing. You know, it's not like if you had a show coming up in a city and like you just like kind of casually knew somebody that was also a musician, and you tagged them without even like kind of contacting, like, hey, you got a gig tonight, like this night, or like what are you up to this, you know, like on this date. That just seems like a little
it comes off to me as being used, because a lot of those folks that do that, the way that I feel when I see those is they don't understand the community aspect of social media, and really, like, if they just asked me, and that, you know, I might say yes, I might say no. A lot of times folks are tagging me in stuff that I would never go to. Right. I just, like, I have to approve anything that goes to my timeline. And I remove the tag a lot of the times because I don't feel like that's somebody saying I endorse this, and without asking if I endorse it is inappropriate. Right. But you know, I have had folks that have, you know, I have offered to them, hey, tag me in, I'm coming to this show, tag me in your posts if you want to, but still, you know, you don't do it in every single one. You know, it's a nice thing to be able to do to spread the word a little bit, but
it becomes really spammy, I think.
Yeah, really not the 98 people, but really just adding a few is helpful to spread it a little bit, but not every time, and really not without asking them first. Because that's, you know, that's like walking over and putting your bumper sticker on somebody else's car. You know.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think really one of the biggest, exactly. One of the biggest things that I think people have to really focus on is that relevancy is number one. Like when you're tagging people, is it truly relevant to that person?
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, or you question at all whether or not it's relevant to them, then I'm always like, then no, you don't bother them with it. Because again, in the flip side, you don't like people tagging you with things that you're not involved with, or that maybe you don't have any knowledge of or interest in. And I think there's like, at some point in the game, people were recommending like, well, tag as many people as you can. And I'm like, again, that actually becomes spam. When it's somebody who doesn't know you that well, who's not really interested in what you're doing, or didn't know that you were going to be doing that and expecting them to help you promote it, you're essentially just like emailing them without knowing them a whole bunch of times, or sticking the bumper sticker on their car or whatever it is, leaving that flyer there. And
I liken it to, so Roseanne Cash had said, that social media was like cafe society. You're wandering around through there and listening to other people's conversations and jumping in when you want. Our friend Wendy Lou calls it a cocktail party you can pause.
Yeah.
And I kind of, when I teach social media to bands, which I do sometimes, I explain it as like you go to a party and you're walking around and you're meeting people and you're maybe handing them your business card and they're handing you theirs and so on and so forth. And you don't want to be the guy that's walking around shouting out that you have a sale and giving everyone your business card and walking away. And, and it's those people are the ones that tag everybody and 90 other people, and they're the ones that don't acknowledge anything going on in the world. They only put up their ticket links or their book links or whatever, and they don't engage with their community, and that comes across.
Yeah.
It comes across.
It's funny because I always tell people, I'm like, essentially there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. A lot of people are talented and doing amazing things. And so when I get onto social media, I have the option to engage with thousands of different things. As a matter of fact, in the United States, most people are getting, on average, 8,000 marketing messages a day, right? Because of just the level at which we can receive information in the United States. And so to me, it's like, if you don't start really telling the story and making it personal, why do they choose you over anybody else? I mean, it's like, there's a lot of great musicians. There's a lot of great writers. There's a lot of great performers out there. Yeah. People choose to pay attention to certain people because they feel that sort of gut connection.
Invested.
I relate to this. I believe in this. I agree with your values. I see exactly what you're trying to do here, and I feel the same thing is important.
Yeah.
So I want to just give everybody the chance, please, because we've got just a few minutes left. Go ahead and chat in any questions that you have. I had put together a short presentation that I wanted to share today, but the truth is, what is amazing is, number one, you guys are awesome, and you have literally almost covered every additional thing I was going to talk about. So thank you for being so on point, that I feel like the conversation is more worthwhile than just looking at the slides. But everybody will get copies of these. And I think also for me, it's really nice to hear what you're saying, because a lot of the suggestions I'm making to the artists who are students of mine or clients of mine, they're really in line with what you're saying. And so I might not be a musician, but I'm paying really close attention to what's working and not working. And I'm getting it. So I'm telling people good things.
I noticed that the questions you sent over, like, they made me stop and think about some things that I just kind of have gotten in the habit of doing. That is not so much a conscious effort, and that's one thing I think for bands. It's like, once you start deciding, or once you start figuring out, like, hey, what's a really good day to post like a big festival announcement? What's a really good time to launch this ticket link, or talk about your album, or talk about whatever? Once you start to work on that, and like it becomes natural, I think. So just going back into that like real aspect, or just not faking it. I think that after you get into it for a while, it becomes really part of who you are, and people see that and respect that.
Yeah. And so I did put some information together for everybody about personal brands, which I think is really particular for artists. I think artists, musicians, and like I said, all types of creatives have a unique opportunity to have their name brand be something that they build and can live alongside the brand of your band or the brand of your book series or the brand of the collective that you're working with. And that allows you as an artist to take your name brand, your personal brand, and go different places with it and have that make things consistent and have a really strong foundation. And I think that's how you make it through having your toes in a lot of different ponds and oceans. And when you're going into different mediums, it's really important. So I just want to encourage everybody to ask yourself these questions. That's really in line with what Barbie's sharing. It's not about making up something that's not real. It's really about getting in contact with yourself and figuring out which part of yourself are you willing to really share personally with the world, and which parts of yourself are you not willing to share. And there is no actual rule of thumb about what the boundaries are. Everybody's boundaries are different.
You just have to own it. Like a friend's band was saying he really wanted to start talking about legalizing cannabis. And, he didn't know if that would hurt their band. And I was like, it could. You could lose some people.
I've
You
had
could
the
also
same
gain some
thing
people.
lately.
But you if you're going to do something like that, you just need to be educated on it, and you need to stick to your guns.
Be able to
and
back
you
it
need
up,
to you need to know that you may have to have some discussions with people about why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people that are running social media accounts to, like you guys do. I think it's really important for the artists or whoever to be talking to that person that's running their account.
Integrally.
And,
Yes.
and say, these are the things I want to do. And then listen to the people who are running your social media accounts, because they can steer you away from some stuff that could be really harmful down the line or really hard to keep up.
Yeah. So I've also put together some tips just about avoiding time drain. Very basic things that I'm sure a lot of you know, but just things maybe check off your list. And if you're not doing them, think about it. Really choosing the channels that you want to be using, that you feel comfortable with. It's okay if it's one channel or two channels. You don't have to be doing like 7 different things to make it work. And really just making sure that, especially when you're a musician, you're capturing things, or you're performing, you're capturing things in the moment. Like, make sure you've tested your phone, your video, your microphone. Like, you know how far away it should be, or you have a little tripod you bought, or, put together kind of your little kit so that when you're documenting things, it becomes just part of what you're doing instead of, I think, this extra burden of trying to actually document those things. And I also think just, we've talked about this a lot, but telling the story, being conversational, sharing that really behind the scenes process, and giving people a reason to connect with you on a personal level, because at the end of the day, it is why they'll choose to engage with you over someone else. And the last thing I want to throw out is we do have a student on today, I believe Doris is on the call, who'd asked a quick question, submitted this beforehand, about how frequently to post. And I have put some recommendations in that Justin and I often give students for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Twitter and Instagram, we recommend for traditional businesses to really post once a day and to not try to flood things. I think Twitter and Instagram actually both, more than Facebook, you can post more frequently to promote things on Twitter and Instagram than you can on Facebook. Facebook business pages, like you pointed out, just posting on them like 5 times a day doesn't necessarily help you. Sometimes it actually hurts you. So it's better on Facebook, I think, to have one really good piece of content than a bunch of extraneous pieces of content. But I do want to throw out there that when it comes to frequency on social media, there's a couple things that really matter, or 4 key things I think you need to think about. 1, the frequency at which you post on any of your social accounts is really about what your audiences want. So pay attention to them. If they're engaging a lot and you're posting 3 times a day, keep doing that. If you're on tour and you're posting a little bit more because you're on tour and you see people are engaging with that, keep doing that. There's no kind of frequency that applies to everyone's audience. It's really about thinking about what they want and need based on who they are. If you're going to post multiple times a day, please schedule them in advance. Don't post like 5 times at once on any platform. I think basically your content gets wasted when you do that. So if I tweet like 7 times in a row, people are like, unless I'm having a conversation, I shouldn't just be posting at people all at once. So use those schedulers. Again, you can always pay attention to your analytics, to your insights, and find out if there's times of day where you get more engagement. And then don't just post. Schedule time into your social media where you're also commenting, having conversations, paying attention to what else is going on in your community, or paying attention to the city that you're going to and what's happening there, so that you're actually participating alongside of people instead of just talking at them. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. Like you said, there's people who just kind of post and post and post. There's not really any true investment on their part. So I just want to encourage everybody to take those pieces of advice and apply them. So we are getting some feedback here just from people who are saying they are really, really enjoying what we're talking about today. And I'm just looking to see if we have any questions here as we wrap up.
Yeah, I'd love for any of the musicians to offer their insights to me, or just if there's any questions out there, because I am absolutely learning every day, and I think that's really important. Like just being able to hang out here today with you guys and see some of the points that you put up on the screen here were helpful to me.
Awesome. And so if there's no other questions, I just want to say thank you to everybody. And it's funny, what they were talking about is Instagram stories being an additional way to kind of post more frequently without filling up the feed. Yeah. And Jenna, that's amazing feedback to give for sure.
It gives people the choice to hit it, like on your little icon bar or whatever. That's one thing I really like about it. You're like, oh, they just posted a video or like a picture. Now I want to see it. It's not just like in your feed.
Yeah. But like I told all of you, you will get a recording of this along with my presentation. I just want to say thank you to Barbie and for Andrew to coming out today and sharing with everybody. Madison, I see your question here. You've always heard that scheduling apps will lower your engagement drastically. So that is an argument that continues to be had about Facebook. That using third-party apps like Hootsuite or Buffer or Sprout Social or any of those apps can hurt your exposure in the newsfeed. Facebook does have its own scheduler. So I always suggest that people use that. If they have a business page, you can schedule it on your business page. You can also schedule on your personal page. So depending on which tool you're using, I would just say Facebook scheduler, use the scheduler they gave you. But truthfully, I have many clients, including artists, that are doing very well using things like Hootsuite or Buffer for Twitter. Both of them now support Instagram, which can be really helpful. And I don't see really that there's any proof yet that there's a dramatic sort of lack of engagement when you're doing it on those sites. So in my experience, if you read the studies, Facebook seems to be the only people that are a little bit of a taskmaster. And it's because they built a scheduler into their tool and they like you to use their tools first. They kind of like you to stay native, as they say. So Facebook's the only thing that I would pay attention to, but I think a lot of the other scheduling apps are still really legitimate. And you might be doing some things in real time and scheduling other things when you're actually on stage, and when you're actually not available at the time to be posting content. When you're on tour and you're going to have some time on the internet and then you're going to be driving, you can schedule things out for the next few days, just announcing the shows, keeping up with people. So hopefully that helps you kind of know that you still should be using that stuff when it's beneficial to you.
I just wanted to add real quick, linking the Instagram page with Facebook or whichever way you want to do it, having it to where if you have a really important announcement or post, you can just select which channels, like right there from your Instagram or from your Facebook, to where people that see it pop up on your Facebook, they see your Instagram handle, they know how to follow you there. To where it's just streamlined across the whole entire platform. It's not like they have to track down another handle. Like making it easy as possible
I do a lot of copy and paste. If it's like a photo, I will do it on Instagram, and then I'll copy and paste and then put it on Twitter and then put it on Facebook. And it's slight edits so that it's correct for all, but that helps. But the one thing I always tell people with scheduling is you want to also incorporate some organic stuff that's coming in real time. You don't want it to keep you from going in and actually replying to comments and stuff like that, and you have to be aware of what's going on in the world. You don't want to be like, hey, my new album's coming out right now, when a bunch of kids just got gunned down. If
that is a great
it's
point.
Really important just to know that's got to be a priority to you. If something tragic happens, you need to cancel those scheduled things. You need to change your tone. and I've seen that backfire on some folks. So,
Yeah, I've seen that backfire on some businesses too,
Yeah.
who had things scheduled out, and then there's just something that starts trending, and what you're putting out is suddenly really incongruent with what the
Yeah.
rest of the nation is experiencing.
Or it seems
So-
inconsiderate.
Yeah,
you know?
it
Yeah.
seems inconsiderate, and really, I mean, people don't automatically assume that immediately, but there'll be people still posting multiple times that day, and it's just you've got to be aware and shut that down.
Great. Well, thanks again for the great question, Madison, and thank you all for joining us. We will be in touch soon with a copy of the recording and everything else. And again, thank you, Barbary and Andrew. I really appreciate both of you today. And just to end us on a positive note, Albert Einstein said, "The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination." So go forward for the rest of your week and be more creative. And I look forward to seeing all of the students on the online classroom. And please, for those of you who are not a member of the JB Media Institute, if you have any interest in what we're doing, please reach out to myself or to Jenna at any time. And we will be back on the first Wednesday of June next month to talk about digital marketing again. Have a great rest of your week.